For the cold open today, Nick, I thought it'd be funny to read
Oh, no.
yourself back to the audience. The text message you sent me, the gist of it is like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah. He said, what should we talk about? Topic still leather and why it's still good? Like, yeah, I guess I guess that's the whole show.
Yeah, it's a little bit, maybe a little broad in my description there.
Well, yeah. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I've just been thinking, and there are places where leather seems to hang on and do well, even despite lower price points of things, um, and higher price points. It goes all over the place. So I was just trying to think about why, like, so why does leather stay relevant in some places and then just completely go away in others? And I think I suspect it's a combination of use case and cost, and then ultimately like perceived value for the end user.
Some things stay around and some things go away. What's something that's sort of stuck around?
Well, in my world, it's footwear and sporting goods, because that's what we do. But there's so many applications of both of those things out in the world. The majority at this point, which are not leather, but still a good amount are. So just looking at why do those things hang on? Is it performance? Is it nostalgia? Is it cost? Is it uh, availability? I mean, it could be any one of those things. One or all four, or some combination.
Well,
And
with the sporting goods in mind, what do you think the reason is there?
well, I think it's in that case. I think that's a fairly unique one, especially if you look at the case of football and basketball too, uh, because they're performance products. So the people that are using those products, like at the high levels, like they're going to use whatever is going to give them the best results, along with being legal in terms of what the sport will allow. So that that sort of the market is very at that upper level. The people that drive the market and keep those things where they are, I think it's a pretty narrow band of people, but they're the ones that know what to do anyway. So it sort of all trickles down from there. I'm thinking specifically about an NFL quarterback or something
Well,
like
let me
that.
give you a counterpoint that might help us think about it more. I was just thinking about baseball gloves.
Yep.
There is no non-leather baseball glove that I'm aware of.
Right.
What's
Well,
that? Like, why not?
there's there's increasingly less leather in baseball gloves, though.
Is that
Like
right?
some of the because they're trying to make them as light as possible. So sometimes they have just leather palms, and like the whole backside of it is, and everything else. And maybe sometimes the inside is leather, but in large part, those have gotten to be less and less leather. And I think there's a combination of cost and weight and how fast things break in. And
Sounds like they need
um,
the palm for the toughness to just not rip when it
right.
grabs
Yeah,
a
the
100
strength
mile
and
an hour
the abrasion
fastball.
resistance they just can't get from a synthetic material. But that's an interesting example because that gives you can see like they're using some of the material in some areas of the product, and then other leather in others. And like that's a good example. That's a pretty telling like combo of like why it holds on in some places and where it doesn't. It's a natural material too, and natural materials develop in the natural world to do certain things.
Hmm.
And when you to take full advantage, I think, of the material, like a material like leather or wool or something like that, like you have to sort of use it the way that it was like nature intended it to be used.
To
So
absorb a fastball.
I was moving on from the baseball example. I was thinking about like breathability and sort of resilience to moisture and abrasion resistance and like all that stuff. Like those are things like that, skins and hides are designed to give to you know the
The
animal that has
animal.
it. So it makes sense that you would want to highlight those attributes in the end product in order to get the best performance out of something.
So that's one I get maybe every week, if not every other week. I'll have friends or people that know I'm interested in leather and have a leather business that will ask me questions about their leather goods, shoes, jackets, etc. And the question is always, well, hey, I got some rain on my leather shoes or leather bag. What do I do? And to me, just that question is so telling of how people, I don't know if they're misinformed or just treat leather with a level of respect where like you can't get it wet. But to me, that's sort of missing the whole point. At least in my mind, the reason to choose leather, especially for something like footwear, is that it's supposed to get wet and dry out and not break. And the answer I always tell people, you're worried about your leather getting wet. You should understand that that leather was completely saturated in water during the entire tanning process. So don't worry about it. Um, what do you think about that? Do you get that question a lot, Nick?
A fair amount, or some version of it. I think that, yeah, I mean, the structure of the leather is fine. I mean, sometimes you can have an effect on what else has been put on or in it, like in terms of the color or the shine, especially. Those things can be affected by getting wet and dried or, um,
The big one is cordovan. Oh, I got these water spots in my cordovan,
right.
which I think we've answered way in the past, but sort of like, oh yeah, just get it all equally wet again and brush it and let it air dry. Kind
Yeah,
of even everything out.
I've been wearing some shell cordovan Crockett and Jones boots for the Stitchdown Patina thing. And it's
The
been pretty
Patina
rainy.
Thunderdome.
Yeah,
Not
it's been
Patina.
pretty.
Come on, brand it correctly.
Sorry. It's been pretty rainy here in Chicago, and I've been wearing them around, and they've been intentionally trying to do bad things to them and get tons of water spots. And um,
Did we talk about this already? Because
we
I've
have
been
talked
doing the
about it. We
same
talked about it on the
exact thing.
shoot. We talked about it
Yeah.
on the shoot, like the care episode.
Okay.
It's come up more than once, but I just and people make a big deal out of it because they're like, "Oh, it's raining. I can't wear my shell shoes out today, my shell cordovan shoes," and I just don't totally understand it because I just brushed them, and then in spots that were still a little bit dark, I just put some water on them and brushed them again. They dried, and
They're all,
they
even
looked better
better.
than they did. Yeah,
Yeah, you told me to years ago. You told me to wear like if I have a pair of footwear that doesn't fit just right, just wear it out in the rain, and to wear it while it's wet, and then let it dry. It sort of like re-lasts to your foot
yeah.
a bit. But it's
You're like
funny that
wet
you're doing
molding the
that.
shoe to your foot. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm doing the same exact thing with a pair of natural shell, uh, those plain toe Vibergs, and they're I purposefully wear them in the rain for that reason. They're awesome.
yep,
But yeah, people are a little precious about, and I kind of get it too. Like we have a lot of, so I'll sell my products directly to customers, so I have that different experience than you selling directly to like a manufacturer or brand. But we get a lot of questions from people saying, "Hey, I spent a lot of money on this wallet. How do I take care of it?" And I think there's a little bit of a dissonance when you tell people like, "Don't do anything." Like, well, what do you mean? I want to take care of this thing. I need to baby it. I'm like, nope, just go hard on it because it's gonna polish itself, especially in a wallet in your pocket. It's kind of cheating, cheating, cheating mode. But with footwear and stuff, I kind of honestly with the cordovan, it's just water and brushing seems to give me a great result. If it starts to get dried out, maybe like a little bit of conditioner or a polish, but it doesn't need much of anything.
mm. Now sometimes a little bit of cream, like some whatever shoe care cream you like. I've been using the Boot Black stuff lately. I like that, and just that, and then like when you think you're done brushing, you should just brush it for like 5 times longer than you just already brushed it.
I
And
think you're
I
right.
mean, yeah, a good brush is like the best leather care product that you can get. I mean, it takes care of so much.
I think that you get really good results putting something like the Venetian cream or the Boot Black Saphir stuff, any neutral color polish. I think you can get immediate good results similar to the results you'd get with water, maybe a little bit less fill and scratches with the water. But the problem I have with the conditioners and polishes are two things is you can oversaturate the leather and then that leather just starts to look like whatever polish you put on it, which is often a little bit hazy. And I actually get that question a lot too from customers, hey, I put too much product on. What do I do? And it's kind of like you're kind of dead in the water, sort of dry cloth it off a bunch. But really, that's a problem. The other thing is you can get a great look. Just put a small amount of product on, but I've noticed those products, especially when they're marketed more as a bright shine, have a little bit of harder waxes. This is my suspicion, is that those harder waxes tend to grab dust a little bit more quickly. So especially in something like the Cordovan, I've been using the mirror shine stuff from Saphir and I love the result a lot, but they get dirty quick. They pick up dust from like a carpet really fast.
Because the wax is all sitting up on top. Or like
just grabbing it.
The conditioners dive in more, and the wax is in those like spit shine, mirror shine products are always going to stay up on the surface because that's what's giving you that higher luster, is that wax. But it's also going to hang on to dirt, and it's in the creases. It'll accumulate in the creases and get white or pick up dirt. It's a
good look for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Then you got to just brush it again. But yeah, I mean, it's not the biggest deal, but yeah.
Yeah.
We got a little off topic, Nick. We were talking about products that have remained leather. What's something that's gone away that maybe, is there a good reason that's gone away? Do you have something in mind for the opposite example?
I guess to go back to a topic that we've kind of covered is, if you look at like leather jackets, like nobody wears leather jackets anymore. Almost nobody. Like everybody.
Only cool guys.
And then there was a time where everyone it was either leather or it was fur or it was wool. I mean, those were sort of the options. And now it's like, wool is, you still see quite a bit of wool, but even that has got to be much, much less than everything else, like all the synthetics and everything. And I think there's a bunch of different reasons for that. I would be a lot of them I would just be speculating, but
it's got to be cost.
Cost is huge, weight. And I think that there are times where performance on those products is like, if you need something that's just fully waterproof and no water is ever going to get through it, like rubber coated nylon, like it's not breathable, but it'll keep you dry forever. So
Nick, if you're going skiing, and I know you're a very competent skier, you're not going to wear like a wool. Are you going to wear like a wool jacket? You kind of want the wind resistance.
I ski in denim and leather jacket.
My Cordovan ski boots.
Yeah, and that's a cost and a weight thing and performance. I mean, there's that's not to say like, well, we're such shills that leather is better in every single application, just across the board, always. As much as I would like that to be true, but
those wind resistant plastic jackets are kind of awesome for being up on a chairlift in the top of a mountain.
But conversely, look at like, where do leather jackets still get used? Like they get used like riding motorcycles because they provide protection. So there's still something there, and that there's the nostalgia and the cool factor and all that stuff that goes along with that. But even still, I mean, I think there's examples like that. Like once you start to think about it, that are kind of everywhere.
Here's an interesting example that's come up in my personal life recently. My wife and I both have, my car's like 16 years old and hers I think is like 14 years old. She drives a lot more than me. So we're car shopping and we're pretty diligent in the research process of stuff. Look at different price points, different quality, like the difference between Acura and Honda, for example. Like, what does that even mean? So my wife's going out, trying out all these cars. And the Honda, for example, it's fine. She gets in, she's like, this is fine. It's kind of like what I have already. I kind of want like a little bit more luxurious feeling. I'm like, what does that mean to you? She's like, actually, I think it means like a leather interior. Why is it that we perceive leather car interiors as luxury? Because I don't think there is a non-leather luxury option. Weird question.
A non-leather luxury option.
The real question is like, why do we perceive leather car interiors to be a premium? It's just interesting.
I think that's just I think it's a cost thing, and then a holdover, a historical nostalgia thing. Because you look at like because what are the options? Fabric or vinyl or leather?
Right.
Well, and I guess now there's sort of something in between vinyl and leather, what they call like leatherette, or I mean, it's like faux imitation
vegan
leather.
plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, but I think it's a cost thing, and I think I think that I keep saying nostalgia. I think that there's a lot there too, because you get that smell that everybody's all about. I think is the leather and part,
Do
and
you
you're
think
not really
they
getting that
do you think they had
from.
perfumes for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely these days for sure.
I'd like to get some of that perfume.
Just spray it all over your clothes in your house.
I want my deodorant to be leather scented.
New car smell.
Yeah.
It's like it's got its own thing. Like it's new car. Like people just say it's new car smell. It's just
Could you imagine I walk in the door just always smelling like a new
look at a new car again.
here comes a new car guy. I'm kind of into it.
Funny. Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about the aesthetic that is cleaner. I don't know what it is. It just
Yeah.
feels it's a vibe.
Well, there's a performance thing there too, with the abrasion resistance and sliding over the seats all the time. And
I don't know. They made pretty resilient fabrics too.
they do now.
Yeah.
They do now. But I think that if you look at like a car interior from like even like I guess I don't know how far back you'd have to go, but there have been plenty of like trucks and vans and stuff where I've been, and they have just vinyl seats. And the driver's seat, especially because they get used, those
They
tend to
just
get used
crack, right?
pretty hard. They get cracked, and like it's just all the vinyl, like all the actual like coating is like coming off of it, especially where the seam is. And I think that just you just have a lot more time with leather, unless if everything's been done correctly. I guess is always
Yeah, but
the
you're selling me on like
qualifier.
the value prop of hey, it's going to last long. But the only thing I'm arguing for is or I'm not even arguing. I just find it fascinating that there's something about a leather car interior that just feels premium, and
Hmm.
I can't figure out what it is. And maybe it is the smell.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe there's just because there's a lot of it, and like whatever is there, you're noticing just because of the quantity of it. I don't know.
Does
I
your
haven't thought
car
about that. It
does your car have a leather interior?
does, yes.
Fancy, Nick.
But I think it's leather. It's not the seats are not all leather. It's like only leather in the parts that you touch. Like the back of it's plastic and the sides of it, I think, are fabric.
And the seat.
And well, the seat itself, like the front of it and the seat part and the back part and the headrest, I think are all leather. But the rest of it, like the rest of the and the back seat's the same way. But
Yeah.
it's not like you get into those like an old Suburban with the captain's chairs and it's just the whole thing is leather.
I mean, it's a vibe.
Pretty cool.
I remember you would take horse hides and just drape them over your driver's seat. It turned pretty blue from your jeans because I think it was like a white horse hide or something.
Yeah. No, I had a Volkswagen that had like really light colored seats. And when I was wearing raw denim, the seats were getting like really blue, like right I'd slide out of the car. Yeah, so I put a natural Vermont horse front over it, so you couldn't really see it. I mean, you could obviously you could see because it's just like a piece of leather, but it got very blue.
It looked cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think whoever bought that car from me probably was happy that I had done that and not just like turn the seat blue.
I'm reading your question here, Nick. I'm not sure what else you want to cover on that topic. In the world of 3D printing and CNC and plastic.
No, it's just there's so much technology now in how things are made. Because with 3D, like you just said, with the 3D printing and the ability for you just basically set a computer and tell them what you want to make, and you feed the material into the machine, and it just makes it for you. Or even with when they're cutting like ballistic nylon into bags or whatever, they've got the roll and they've got the auto cutter, and they just cut every single square inch out of it, and you end up with products that are fine. But there are a lot of places that hold on, and leather is still a gigantic market in the world, and that stuff has to go somewhere, and it has to be better qualify better however you want it to be than those things I just said in order for it to still be marketable.
I think there's a little bit of a story you could tell too. So for you, you're the chef of the two of us, or past life chef. But drawing the restaurant analogy, let's say, there is kind of something to being told a story of, where the stuff came from. And I think the leather, because it is such a good traditional type of method, you can talk a lot about the things that have gone into making it, even the hides and all that. I think there's like a little bit of a story that adds to the value, even though it's not necessarily a performance or durability based. There's something about that which is much more interesting than like, hey, here's a sheet of nylon or whatever.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I was thinking more of just like the larger leather world, not necessarily in the context of how you and I do business, because obviously that's important for us, and we take time and do it by hand and do it the old-fashioned way, and that appeals to some people, and they were willing to pay more for that extra quality. But like airline seats and stuff that you sit on, some athletic shoes that people buy, and they're just buying them because they like the way they look and they're the right price. But there's still leather in them and in those places. So, and just why? I mean, it's a cost thing and it's a performance thing at that point, because they're not marketing it. Like when you take a Southwest flight or whatever, they're not marketing like, oh, we have leather seats. Like it's just part of the thing.
That's a good point. So people like the vibe of it, and maybe the airline in that example likes the durability. They've calculated that it makes sense to pay this money to give people what they perceive as a premium experience, as well as it's not going to break down as fast as other options.
Yeah. I mean, you're paying for, I mean, someone's paying for it, I guess, at the end of the day. But, yeah, I started to go through in the shoe example, especially. I mean, it holds moisture without getting crazy heavy and without losing its performance. So, I mean, that's the reason it's still used in like soccer cleats. I mean, like they still make leather soccer shoes, not as many, but because it still has, those properties to it.
Explain that to me more. So why soccer cleats?
That was maybe not the best example because there's so many. There's so many.
Called out.
No, it's just like but kangaroo soccer shoes. That was always like the pinnacle of like the soccer kit or the football kit, right? Was your cleats?
I don't know.
Yeah, and kangaroo was because kangaroo is super durable. So and it's thinner, so you'd have kangaroo, and it would get wet and it would dry and be fine, and you would wear it and it would break in and mold to your foot, and it would get, if it got wet, it didn't get heavy.
I guess
It didn't make it so you couldn't kick the ball anymore. Yeah, so I mean,
kicked by other people.
Yeah, so I mean, that's another example. We keep going back to sport type examples, but I mean that shoe example follows for a pair of work boots too. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it doesn't lose. When you think about specifically some of the synthetics or even something natural like cotton, like as soon as it gets wet, it's not performing as well. It gets heavy. It doesn't insulate anymore. Or it's going to dry and doesn't dry out quite the same way, or it dries out and it shrinks. I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why certain things are used in certain places. And then on the other side of the coin, you look at, well, just to stay with sporting goods, like basketball, where basketball is basically leather basketball is basically just used by the pros at this point. And there's very few leather basketballs out in, whatever school gyms or colleges even anymore, I don't think, because they take a long time to break in and they're expensive and,
That one still stumps me. I don't understand why if everybody's teenage aspiration is to be a pro basketball player, right? Wouldn't you want to play with what the pros play with and like practice like you're going to be a pro? Still don't understand that one.
I don't fully understand it either for that reason, but I just think it's an indoor outdoor thing at the end of the day. I think people are like, I don't want to have 10 basketballs or even 3 basketballs. They just want sort of like their main ball. But having never been a basketball player, I probably should just stop talking.
Hey, Nick, I started working on the live podcast from a couple weeks ago in New York at the Stitchdown boot camp. It's a good vibe so far. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but do you want to take a couple minutes here to debrief that trip? How did you
Sure.
enjoy it? Did you like boot camp?
I did like boot camp. It was fun. It was fun for a handful of different reasons. It's fun to be around a group of people that are also sort of unified in their interest, albeit a very niche specific interest. So people were very enthusiastic, and we weren't talking to anybody that like didn't want to be there. I mean, it was all people that were interested and excited and wanted to know more. So that's fun to sort of be around people with that. I mean, everybody's in a good mood. So I mean, that's part of it. That makes it good. And then it's fun to see all those products out and see how the people in the other companies that were there interface with each other. Yeah, sort of just see what people are wearing and thinking, and it's interesting.
I have
What do you think?
one theme of a takeaway that I have is it, and I don't know why, but it feels like the people that are interested in the high quality footwear, I've never met a mean person in that scene. It just seems like really friendly people. I don't know how that's happened, but they've selected, maybe they just self-select to an event like that, people that are friendly enough to go to a thing. But I don't know. I've never met like a jerk that's really into, Alan Edmonds, for example. They all seem really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the event is similar to what you said. Meeting great people, community is probably the main theme. Just great people. But also for me, I'm so stuck in my Chicago bubble here of the tannery being next door, and I work with the Horween leather all day. So I'm very, narrowly minded in that way. So for me, it was great to see other tanneries represented and look at their stuff in person, as well as meet those individuals that represent the different tanneries and all the different footwear brands. It was cool to see the leathers, lasted and sewn, as opposed to just swatches and sheets of leather. I had a great time, man. And then for me, I think I might be the minority opinion here, but I liked the panels the most. I liked the exhibits were great, but I think just going to the panels and hearing people talk and being nerds like we are on the podcast, it was essentially 2 days of podcasts that I'm a nerd for. I like information, so I love the podcast and stuff. So speaking of the podcast, that live episode will come out after this one. I still put a little bit more work on it, but we had fun. I'm watching back at myself. I'm like, oh, it looks like you're having fun, Phil. And I had a blast. It was great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was. Was there anything that surprised you? Was there anything you weren't expecting when you were there?
I was surprised by some other tanneries. The one that's specific to me, and I'll be careful here, so you keep selling me leather. I was really impressed with bee leather specifically, and it seemed like they were doing something. It wasn't like the most unique things I've ever seen. I just thought it was really well done, sort of classic looks. A little bit more of a natural finish than some of the other tanneries, and that's what I gravitate towards. So I liked bee leather stuff, and then from speaking to other footwear makers as well as your sales guy, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he said, oh yeah, bee leather is really great for samples. When you get larger quantities, it's a little bit more inconsistent. So I don't have a way to verify that, but man, if their samples are like their production, it's really nice. I like the bee leather stuff. And then, man, so many different boots. The other big theme that I noticed there was it's mostly brown. is what I'm seeing. Like not a lot of color. Most footwear everybody was wearing was dark brown or medium brown. That's pretty much it. That's all I
Followed up
saw.
by light brown.
Yeah, dark brown, medium brown, light brown in that order. So maybe I don't know if there's something to take away there, because I keep trying to make colors happen in my product lines, and I there's a couple people that are like, yeah, I really like that blue. It's awesome to have something a little bit more unique. But at the end of the day, I think people hear the word leather, they imagine what leather's supposed to look like, and it's never blue, right? It's always brown. So I think that's an interesting human thing that we've sort of tied together. So leather is brown.
I was just thinking about why do people think that leather is brown, or why do people think of some sort of rich brown? I think it's because it was classically in terms of what people wanted, and also that's sort of that's natural state if you're going to tan it with tree barks and do nothing to it.
Exactly.
And it's going to age and get to that dark brown, and so it sort of ends up there anyway. So I guess it makes sense to start there.
Yeah. But I wanted to continue to ask you about boots and stuff, or even just your leather goods in general. Do you have a care routine that you follow for your boots and any other leather stuff that you use?
I don't really have any regular routine because I just think it's based on, I mean, I know some people will just like every 10 wears, put a half ounce of, whatever on it and let it sit for 17 minutes and then brush it for 11 minutes. They want like a formula, but there's no, I think the people that I've seen out there that are really good at, or have really good looking shoes, they're not doing the same exact thing to every single pair of shoes that they have. That doesn't mean that you have to have like some deep knowledge in order to be able to take good care of your stuff though. I think that it's pretty intuitive, or it can be, if you just think about what it is and what's happened to it. Just if it starts to, you know what it looked like when it was new, or if I guess if you bought it new, you do, and you know what it looked like when it was just broken in, and then you know what it looks like when you're wearing it today. So what do you think, like what is different about it in the way it looks now versus what it looked like when it was just first broken in, and then what do you have to do to sort of bring it back to that state? Which in most cases is just, cleaning it with a good brush or some warm room temperature water, letting it dry, and then using a light conditioner and then brushing it again. I mean, that's like restart your computer.
Oh yeah.
It's like takes care of like almost like very many issues and maintains things. But yeah, I think that, there are times where people want to do different things. If they're like, oh, I don't like that, I want to put some color back in, or I want to darken this a little bit. And like those are so specific. I mean, that's why there are still shoe care professionals out there, cobblers, because that does take some specific knowledge. But that's, I guess, my typical routine is my shoes are looking dirty or salty or dry, or they're not as shiny as I want them to be. I'm just like, what do I have to do to make them look the way I want them to look? Which is most cases, like what I just said, clean them up a little bit, brush them really well, and then put some light coat of some sort of neutral conditioner on there. And I guess depending on what it is and what I want it to look like, that's the only thing that's different in my routine is what product am I putting on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I put it on, and I almost always apply it just with like my fingers, with like, I don't use a rag or cloth or anything like that, because I think that, to go back to the conversation earlier, you really cut down on your chances of putting too much on when you're doing it that way, because it's not soaking into the cloth. It's just whatever you're putting on is you can see exactly, and you can sort of feel what's going on. I mean, obviously, if you're gonna be polishing like 30 pairs of shoes using blue shoe polish, you're probably not gonna do it that way. But for me, when I just put neutral polish on, and I use like some pretty gentle, natural stuff, like even if I do that with the Venetian cream and the Moot Black stuff and the Sapphire stuff, maybe not the mirror gloss stuff. That might be a little tough to do with your fingers, but yeah, and then let it sit for a few minutes and then just brush it. Brush it for a long time.
You ever do the old Karate Kid wax off move with a dry cloth?
At the very end?
Before brushing. Usually,
sometimes.
I've just noticed you put on just enough product with your finger, you could do that. And then use a dry cloth after it's sat for a couple minutes and sort of buff it to remove some of the excess, and then brush it to even everything out is sort of my go-to these days.
Mm-hmm. I've done
those that little buffing does like a lot of work from what I see. That's, I guess,
especially with those
a
waxier
similar
products.
result. Yeah, you could get a similar result with just brushing. Speaking of brushes, I only really have experience with horsehair. I know you have a couple other animal hair brushes. Any difference on those?
Sure.
What do you recommend?
The horsehair, if you're just going to have one, that's the one. You can get a horsehair brush, and you can get it in a couple different lengths.
I feel like the different fill densities matter a lot too.
They do.
I think I like it kind of medium, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on the. This is going in the weeds too. It depends on the length of the bristle too. Because
I like long length, medium to firm. If it's longer, I want it firmer. Yeah, or more dense.
Yes, the longer it gets, the denser it needs to be.
Yeah, but if you go, so tip for people, if you have a shorter bristle, a shorter hair brush, and it's too densely packed, you can I've scratched some shell that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you've got something other than horse, if you're using like a bristle, like a boar brush, which I use. I like those, especially for that first step for cleaning, because they're a little firmer and not quite as fine. But I use those to polish too. If the bristles are a little bit longer and they're not so densely packed, like you were just saying.
Yeah, I guess people use different fills and lengths for different purposes. I bet like a real polisher would have, stages of brushing with different types of hairs and fills, right? You probably end it with like a long hair, really lightly packed, right? Just kind of dust it.
I'll show it next time you're around. It's goat hair, and it's very dense. And it's like the softest. No, it's so soft.
Soft?
It's so soft. I'll show it to you.
Goat hair is softer, huh? Okay.
I mean, this one is.
Yeah, that must be.
But it's like so nice and feels so soft. I just don't even want to use it. It seems like a shame to
dust your face with it.
Yeah, it seems like more like what it would be made to do. But yeah, I think that that harder wax polish, I think that's like the next degree up in difficulty in order to get the combination of the look that you want and not end up with like a wax cake on your foot. Especially if you're trying to do an actual like spit shine, like a mirror finish, where you're putting the layer on and you're introducing a little bit of moisture, buffing,
and do it again.
Just like do it again and again until you end up with it's almost like a lacquer, but.
Yeah, it's not my world.
I don't
understand that. I mean, it's cool. It's just not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So let's end it with this. What are you wearing for your Patina Thunderdome right now? How's that going?
Dark brown, Shell Cordovan, Crockett and Jones, Harlick is the model. It's a boot. It's a cap toe boot. It's going. It's all right. They're awesome shoes. They look great. They're just they're a little narrow for me, so I'm still.
Oh, you're feeling it.
Yeah, we're 40 days in. I'm still breaking them.
Do you feel like you picked the correct size, or?
Yeah, the length is good. I just have a wide foot. Like I probably just need a different width, but that's not their fault. That's my fault. But they break, in the right spot, and they're finished amazingly well, and the color's really nice. And
did you wear those to the live podcast we did? Yeah, people see that on there. We're both wearing Cordovan stuff, and it's so shiny.
Yeah.
The bottom part of the frame is just bright.
Yeah, I wore those. So that was 2 weeks in, at that point. Those were 2 weeks old because the entries had opened, the beginning of October. And so I was so happy to be sitting down in those shoes because we stood up a lot that weekend, and my feet were. Having wear not broken in shoes and walking around Brooklyn was maybe not my best idea, but I did it anyway. I knew that going into it.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I'm glad we did that, and I'm glad. Speaking of great people, from being at that boot camp. People in the audience were so great. We had really good questions, and even the day after, more people that came to the live podcast with more great questions. It's cool that people are so thoughtful about these things. So on that topic, please leave your questions in the comment section because Nick and I would love to answer them. And yeah, time to go watch the Bears game, Nick. What are you doing?
No, I don't think well. I'll either watch the highlights or I'll record it and watch it later.
They're terrible.
Yeah, it's not great.
It hasn't been great for 40 years. Make the Bears great again. Should be their hats.
I don't know how to do that.
I guess on that happy note, we'll end this show. Thanks for checking out the episode today, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.